What's up, everybody, and welcome to the show. My name is Art West, and today we're going to look at the.com and how we can bring data into our application. We recently looked at their builder and how you can use their remixable blocks to quickly spin up elements and attributes on the page. This takes it one step further and brings in real data into the applications we build, making them that much more dynamic. Okay, so we've landed at the.com. We're going to go ahead and start building our data-driven website. Go ahead and click this Start Building button. It's going to spin up the editor for us. We're going to start completely from scratch by hitting this Create Site button. In the builder here, this instance is spinning up, and pretty soon we're going to have our site ready. So we just go ahead and click this Edit Site button, and we see the editor from the.com, which we covered in greater detail in a previous video. So if you haven't seen that, be sure to go ahead and check it out. So just to cover a few of the basics, we have our pages, we have our blocks, and we have our sheets. We also have some other elements down here, some other modules, which we're not going to be using. We're basically going to be using sheets and blocks today. So to get started, we want to bring in a block that we can then customize a little bit and feed data into. So to do that, we're going to click this Open Feed button, which brings us to this feed of all kinds of different blocks that we can bring into our site. We're going to look for this block that sort of looks like an employee directory and use this to build out our demonstration today. So we're going to go ahead and click Remix to the site, choose the site that we're working on. Up here, you're going to see that it's remixing. And once it's done, you're going to get this celebratory confetti pop down from the top. And that's when you know you can go back into your site. So we'll go ahead and choose the site that we were working on again. As you can see, we now have this employee card block brought into our site, which is pretty cool. If we click it, it's already completely styled. It looks awesome. And we can see that there's some default imagery and then just some sort of placeholder text in all these spots here. All the attributes have already been configured because this was a block that was built by somebody else. So pretty cool. What we're going to do is along here on the bottom, we're going to go ahead and click the worksheet, and we're actually going to go to this sheets component, which is really just our database for our site. You'll notice you can have lots of different data tables that you'd be able to pull in data from. We're just going to go ahead and create a basic one for today. One thing to note is you can actually upload data if you have it somewhere else, but we're going to go ahead and create a blank data set today. We'll just go ahead and call it sheet. So once that's done, we can actually just navigate right into the sheet, which just looks like a giant spreadsheet, if you will, and we can start populating data into this sheet. So we're building an employee directory. So things that we might want is a photo, a name, and a title. I think that will be sufficient today to just show how we can build this type of data-driven application. So we're actually going to pull in some just stock imagery for the photos. You can drag and drop them into these cells, which is super convenient. Just put some stock imagery in here. You'll see these just populate right in. And a name, we can do art. We did a caps lock there. Paul. Not sure what I'm doing to cause that. Jess. Every time, and Sarah. Okay. Title, we can do CMO, CEO. We could do something like marketing and design. Okay. Just for the sake of example. There we go. So we just populated some data into the sheet. As you can imagine, you can add a lot of data or bring in data from somewhere else, but we're just going to keep this pretty simple for today's walkthrough. So now what we're going to do is along the bottom, you see these tabs that are open, which is really quick and easy to navigate. We're going to pop back to this employee card. So there's 3 cards here, but we really don't need all 3 because we're going to bring in data that's going to populate the cards from our data. So using these hamburger menus, you can actually just click here and delete these div blocks, essentially is what they are, but you can go ahead and delete these out. So now that we just have one. So we have this one card, but we want to connect it to our data. So the next step is we're actually going to click this element button and we're going to search for sheet feed. So sheet feed is just connecting to our data set. We're just going to go ahead and call this sheet. So now we have the data feed and we're going to actually reorder this. So you can drag and drop here, which is really handy, and bring the sheet above this employee card. However, there's some other steps that we need to take here. We're going to go ahead and click the attribute menu. And here is where we have some of these attributes of this data set, including the sheet name, starting row, number of rows, sort by. We're not going to change a lot of these settings, but we will do a couple things. The first thing we're going to do is I'm going to change the starting row to 2. So the reason why we're doing that is because of our table here has headers. So the row that we want to start looking at our data at is number 2. If we didn't have headers, we would just leave it to default and keep it at number 1. Again, here we want to click into this cell and make sure that we're connected to the sheet. The next thing that we need to do once we get out of the attributes is we need to actually bring this employee one div with nested to be within the sheet so that it's underneath it. The way that you do that is you just drag that into the sheet div element there. So now we have these 4 images, and the reason why there's 4 is because there's 4 rows in our data set. However, it's just pulling in the stock data still and not actually looking at our sheet for the data because we haven't mapped the fields. So this is where it gets really cool and powerful. If we click into this image here, we can actually see that it's set as variable image, but we want to map this to our sheet. So if we go back to our sheet, if you remember, our photos are saved in column A. So if we go back here, all that we need to do is equals capital A. Now, just like that, all of our imagery that are in our table are pulling into here. This is great, but we still have some placeholder text for the name and the title of each employee. So this isn't a problem. We can actually drag up this editor. We can go to the name here, and in the same step, we can look, well, actually, I'm not sure where it is. So we can pop back here. The name is in column B. So we can do B for the name. And it doesn't matter, I guess, if it's capital or not. I'm just going to be consistent and stick with the capitalization there for B. And then we also want to change this title. They're all CEO right now. This is in column C. We can pull in the title. So if we just go down here to CEO, again, change this to C. Now we're actually getting a title of each individual from our data set, and it's dynamic. So as we update our data set, this page will continue to update. We can add another employee. We'll just do that. For example, we'll do something a little bit different here. We'll say this is employee, and we'll say animation. Now, just dynamically, if we come back to here, we can see that our new employee who's in charge of animation has been added to our project, and this all looks fantastic and great. Now, keep in mind that you can change all of these elements within this block if you would like. We're going to keep it the same now because today we're just showing you how you can bring data into your application to build something neat and dynamic. So this has a lot of implications, and obviously you can tap into all kinds of different data sets all within one site. But I hope this gives you a great example of some of the really cool things you can do with data on the.com.